Hi, this is photographer David Flores. I'm hanging out today with Justin from Fuji, and we're taking a look at the brand new Fuji GFX 50S. Justin, tell us a little bit about this guy.
Really, this camera it builds on everything else we've been doing. And it really, as you kind of quickly figured out in playing with it earlier, that it really is just an XT-2 with a really big sensor in it, that the controls and the way it feels and the functionality of it is really, the DNA from the rest of the X series is just firmly embedded in this camera.
If you've used an XT-2, you're going to pick this up and you'll know where everything is right away. Press the thumb lever and you get the center autofocus point just like you would on the XT-2, which is excellent. But the big story here isn't just the handling, it's the size of this sensor. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, really we've got a bare sensor in this camera, not X-Trans, and it's 51.4 megapixel, and we're about 1.7 times larger than a full frame 35. So you're dealing with a sensor that's 33 by 44.
And the detail that you're able to resolve out of that, I'm sure, is incredible.
Well, yeah, big pixels, it gives you lots of tonality, low noise, just the 3D rendering and the 3D modeling, 14 stops of dynamic range out of it. It's different. It's a different beast. Longer focal length lenses, it creates a different look. The photographers talk about the 3D effect, that you get a real pop out of this camera because the tonality that it can reproduce. So as opposed to just the number of colors in a black in your jacket, this sensor can reproduce the finest little detail in it and the tonality that it sees. So it's a different beast.
Now, a sensor is really only good as the lenses that you put in front of it, and with this completely new addition to the X series, you need a new line of lenses. What are we expecting at launch?
Well, there's 3 lenses that are going to be available at launch. We've got the 32 to 64 zoom that's on the camera right now, f4 fixed the whole way, which gives us about a 24 to a 50 in 35mm speak. We've got the 120 macro, which isn't a 1:1 macro, it's a 1 to 0.5 macro. And that's an f4 lens. It's about a 97, 98mm equivalent in 35mm speak. And then the 63 over there, which is a 50. So kind of a little bit of best of all worlds there, but then we've got 3 more coming in the first year. Over the summer, you're gonna see a 110 f2, so a portrait lens, fast portrait lens. The other thing that you're gonna see is a 23mm.
Wide angle prime?
Yep.
Would be like
18.
How big is that honker?
Yeah.
I don't know, that sounds really cool.
It's not as big as one might imagine. That's coming, and then towards the end of the year, a 45, so a 35mm equivalent.
In picking up and handling the camera, there are some little delightful differences that you find, but you have a nice little display right up here on top of the camera, and this is a little bit different than anything I've seen in any camera. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, going to an e-ink display. So yeah, you switch the camera off, it holds all your settings, your shutter speed's still there, everything's there on one little screen, and it's customizable. So if you want to see something in there, it shows up. If you don't, you can turn these things off and make it really focused on what you want. But also, we've started adding C's to things. So we started it on the X Pro 2, has the C on the EV comp, so you can use the command dials. Well, now we have apertures with C's on them.
Oh, so we can set that right
you can actually use the thumb wheel on the back or the front to control shutter speed, to control aperture. So if you're coming from a DSLR that you don't have manual controls, the camera can adapt to you. So do you want to be manual control, spin a shutter speed dial, or would you rather run a thumb wheel or a wheel in the front of the camera?
There. And there's some other little delights here. So a lot of folks that are using medium format, either for landscape or maybe product photography, if you've ever been like on a set or you've been out in the field and your battery dies, it's totally a pain, especially like at this time of the year in wintertime, getting underneath of the camera to switch out the battery is a pain. But on the GFX, the battery door's right here on the side, and
so yeah, it's
just pop it right right out.
Out it goes, back again.
It's some of these things that are just like the smallest, like seemingly like simplest things that would make a camera like this that much more usable for somebody in the field. And I think medium format has carried with it this idea of, okay, this is a camera for professional use, and that's certainly true. But if you're an enthusiast photographer that wants the highest possible image quality, the highest resolving power of systems available, I think GFX could be for that kind of person too.
Definitely. I mean, that's really where we target this camera at, is anyone that wants really, really high, uncompromising image quality. I mean, that medium format has always given that. And, go back to the film days, and medium format cameras weren't always these big, bulky things that had, price tags with lots of zeros behind them, they were much more attainable. And so this is now hopefully having a resurgence and reinvigorating the medium format marketplace to make it more accessible to everyone.
Yeah, and it's exciting. I think the format's a really, really exciting way to shoot, because when you look through the viewfinder, it has more magnification than what you'd find in any of the previous X series cameras, and the aspect ratio that you're shooting in by default is also a little bit different. So this is a 4:3 default, is that right?
4:3 is the native of the sensor.
Okay.
But we can go 3:2, we can go 4:5, 6:7, 1:1, yes. It also has the old X-Pan format, so a double 35 frame.
That's awesome.
It's over 20 megapixels.
Yeah.
So why not? I mean, you can do anything. That's the beautiful thing about a mirrorless camera, is you're now being able to see what you're actually framing, even at a crop. So a 6:7 crop or whatever you want to do, it's there.
And you can pop the viewfinder off if you need to, and just have the chop down body on your sticks in the studio if you were doing product or still life?
Yeah, well, the finder's removable. We also have an attachment that goes in between the finder that allows the finder to kick up to 90 degrees, kind of like the old stovepipe finders on the Hasselblads and things like that, but also kicks to 45 degrees left and right. So if you were shooting vertically and wanted to shoot a little lower angle, it gives you that flexibility.
Anything else I'm missing here? Anything else, any hidden secret sauce that
Hidden,
you want to talk about
sauce?
today?
I mean, there's lots of things that we've added to this camera. I mean, lots and lots of updates.
I forgot to ask you about file formats. Because we're using a bare sensor, and if you've used an X-Trans sensor, there's a random array of how red, green, and blue pixels are read on that sensor. The net result, like with the JPEG engine in the cameras, is awesome. But if you're working with a raw file in post, it can be a little bit tricky if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But here, bare sensor.
Bare sensor, yes.
So does that make things a little bit easier for us in post-production?
Well, I mean, it makes it a little easier for third-party software to be able to demosaic the file.
Okay.
That's the problem. When you're dealing with the X-Trans pattern, because it's different than bare, it's a little harder for the software to actually demosaic the pattern, because it is a bit more random because of the structure of pixels and how many it uses to make up an area for demosaicing. So it is a little different than that. But we also have a TIFF engine built into the camera.
TIFF engine?
Yeah, so before we have the raw processors in camera, you know, you've used the film simulations, you can shoot a raw file, process it out. Well, this also does that as TIFFs now.
Oh, this is fantastic. Well, I think, you know, for enthusiasts that really, really care about image quality, for pros that are tired of renting medium format systems, I think this is going to be a phenomenal option when it launches.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm sold. I'm photographer David Flores, hanging out here with Justin from Fuji. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you next time.